participants? Am I audible? Yeah, thank you so much. The aim of the program is it is not only getting the Atal fund and making use of it. My aim is after end of this program, at least very few of the faculty members or the research scholars, they have to get some input related with VLSI design and testing. I hope that definitely it will be very helpful for your research work. Either you are started your work or you are going to start. It will be definitely helpful for you. Let me introduce our resource person, Veraguru sir. He has completed his BTech from SV University Tirupati and he received his MTech degree from IIT Madras. And he has 3 years of academic experience from PSC College of Technology, and also he has worked in many areas across engineering community sites with the arm at Silicon Valley, USA. And yeah, his area of expertise is designing, layout, characterization, testing, verifying memory, silicon on chip for SRAMs, ROMs, and register files used in all present-day electronics for ARM and customs like Apple, Samsung, Qualcomm, NXP, etc. And presently, sir is working as a director and co-founder at Exile Technology Private Limited, Bangalore. Sir, welcome for the session. Thank you so much. And now I request the resource person to take over the session. Thank you.
Ilangovan, hope you are able to hear me.
Yes, sir. I can.
And hope my voice is clear.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, all.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
Good morning, sir.
First of all,
morning,
thank
sir.
you so much, Ilangovan, for inviting me to this session. Okay. It gives me immense pleasure and happiness, and at the same time, I could say honored to be part of this faculty development program or Atal program on VLSI design and issues. Thank you so much, Ilangovan, once again for the introduction about myself. So let me start the session. Hope you are able to see my screen clearly.
Yes, sir. We can.
Okay. So today, based on the context of this FDP program, so I would like to introduce to the semiconductors, the next wave of things that are planned as a part of these semiconductors. Majority of the challenges what we face from the industry perspective, and maybe I will just give some pointers on the research aspects that are possible in these fields will be what I will be covering. So as Ilangovan has told, or as per the program top level, so we'll be discussing maybe within this 1 hour plus talk that's possible, some of the challenges what we face. At the top level, the agenda of my talk would be to cover the overall semiconductor market overview, and in particular, the future of automotive segment. And just to give you the way the technology is scaling, and maybe as the technology is scaling, so just to highlight some of the challenges what we face at the logic transistor level or some of the interconnect challenges. And maybe then we will move off how at industry or in general the SOC design sign-off is done, and maybe be taking an example of SRAM and maybe applying all these things to these complete SOC chip sign-off. And maybe I'll be discussing some of the IPs that are used in SOC, in particular SRAM, and trying to just justify how the overall SOC or VLSI chip is signed off from the design perspective or the feature sets perspective. Finally, I will be covering the future memory technology in particular, which is the recent one, and which may be an area where there is a lot of research that can happen. And I may give you a picture of Indian semiconductor opportunities in particular, because the overall, the presence of semiconductor or VLSI overall in India or from India is relatively very, very small. And finally, from the industry to the teaching community, some of the research collaborations that are possible from some of the companies, so that maybe you can take it forward from the faculty development perspective or the research areas, whichever you have chosen. So top level at a semiconductor market overview perspective. So maybe I have just divided this one based on the broad segments that are part of VLSI or semiconductor. And just to give you some of the pictures or the sales perspective or the cost perspective, as the industry is already to a good extent is matured and is in developing phase continuously, or it is very rapidly growing. So I may give you the financial aspects of these ones, and maybe I will compare those ones with respect to the software, so that you can feel the level of the industry. So to be frank, this year, the VLSI industry or the semiconductor industry throughout the world is approximately some $540 billion. So, or in terms of, maybe I can say $500 billion is the market that is there from the overall world perspective. And here is a chart to show that across the years, what is the size of this market. And if I just divide this one before going to these ones, maybe to just some of you to say what may be the corresponding, because we do consider some of the software as one of the benchmark along with the hardware, always to say that which one wins other. So from that perspective, to say similarly here, maybe in the year 2021, this market, maybe I'm not sure fully it's visible, around some $540 billion is the software industry. May not be the IT industry, which may have some of the other things like BPOs and then systems coming into picture. It's a pure software market driven by, you can just think Microsoft, Google as a names to say, or some of the other OS and other database like Oracle, SAP, all of them, and some of the infrastructure, all of them. So just to compare, so the hardware industry and software industry are similar, and the developments are in parallel. When it comes to these ones, so what I could like to say is, maybe if I just would like to compare these ones from the Indian market perspective, I will be discussing something little detail at the end of the talk, just to give you. India is a leader in software, is what we can say top level. Out of this 500 plus billions, close to 120 billions is from India. That means some 25 to 30%. And in some segments, like some services, we are at least some 50% of the overall. But when it comes to the hardware or the semiconductors, other than the imports, what we import, like mobiles, maybe any of the soft hardwares, whichever you can just think, the exports wise, we are nowhere or within 0 to 1%. So we need to do a lot from the India perspective, from the overall hardware perspective. I may be excluding when I just say 0 to 1%. When it comes, there are a lot of semiconductor companies which are there, the fabless companies in India, but those are all foreign driven and they are not part of India exports in particular. So the segment wise, if I just divide this semiconductor market, the major things are from the communication, electronics, which you can think as mobile and non-mobile segment of communication, which is some 30%. And then the data processing industry, which you can think the present cloud and all the processing industry, the laptops, all those ones, which you can just think. And maybe the other important ones is the consumer electronics, the automotive electronics, the industrial electronics, and maybe some of the military and civil aerospace electronics are some of the key ones overall, and there are individual small ones when it added together will be constituting the overall 100%. So right now, if I just say the overall growth of this semiconductor comes mostly from the smartphones, the cloud-based solutions that are driven by software plus hardware together, the storage of those ones, and in recent times, the IoT and maybe the artificial intelligence, along with the 5G, which is getting deployed, maybe may not be in India, but in other countries, the infrastructure and the support of all these 5G has led to a tremendous growth overall from the semiconductor market overview perspective. And in particular, if I just say some of the other industries like automotive and industrial are, maybe I can just give you some numbers, are growing at more than 30% in the present day ones. So, and maybe the expectation is that the consumer electronics, the data processing industry, and the wireless or the communication industry will be a small steady growth. Maybe if I just give by an electronic type of an instrument, if I just set, just hide this one. So this is a chart to highlight overall the percentage growth from 2017 to 2022 across various segments, which you could see. But top level, I could just, there are many names that you could be finding here. But some of the things that I could just say is there is a lot of development or the growth in head-mounted devices. Maybe you can think because of pandemic or some of the other things. It could be audio or video based, the display based. It could be a lot of gaming, a lot of glasses, chrome-based glasses, display glasses, or maybe the lot of speakers with a lot of these ones are growing very fastly, and maybe some of the smartwatches are growing very fastly. And this is ADAS is actually advanced driving assistance systems, which is used a lot in the car in the present day. Maybe you might have heard a lot of these Tesla-based cars, which are a lot of electric vehicle and hybrid vehicles, which you can just think. And the internal systems that are used there are growing at a phase of 23 to 25%. And some of the other ones in the other side, you can just think some 3 years or 4 years back, you can just think there are a lot of cameras, digital cameras, which were very popular. And a lot of DVD players were popular. There were a lot of media players that were popular. And there were a lot of gaming consoles, those were popular. But all of them, with all these were possible in the present day mobile and other things which have come. It could be some of the handheld devices or mostly from mobile market. All these ones were taken away, and the growth of these ones are in negative, or they may go away sometime very soon. All these equipments, to a good extent, if I just say based on the regions where they are consumed, I can just think it is from America, both north and south, and it is maybe you can think Asia Pacific. This is Europe, and this is Japan. So you can just see most of them are consumed. Maybe you can think because of the population or overall usage perspective. It is from Asia Pacific overall. And you can just say from 2018 to 2019, these ones are sold, are manufactured, or the sales happens mostly from China, 2018 to 19, Korea, and then Taiwan, and then Japan. When we say this one, it is manufacturing of the chip, then assembling of all these ones. You can think all the mobile phones which are there, or all the other segments which I highlighted here. Those are all manufactured from here, are exported to all the world from this China mostly previously. So the things are changing. There are some good things that are happening. It is may not be this much predominant going forward, but it will be soon. Some India may be there, some of these places trying to capture this big growth market. So if I just, in a particular case, if I take as an example, maybe a car as an example, and try to see the level of electronics that are there from a factory fitted car. So maybe present day, you may be able to think, maybe may not be India, we are not sure whether we are able to use all these ones, but some of the medium segment Indian car or many of the US based cars or the Europe based cars, right now you can just think something like a lot of electronics that is there inside this car, and maybe going to one or couple of parameters before that to highlight that one, the chart on the right hand side, which it is trying to say in a car, the price wise somewhere around some $600 of worth semiconductors are there, or maybe very soon, maybe by 2020, you can see this percentages wise, somewhere around 35% of the car cost is actually coming from the electronics that are used there, or by 2030, where most of the things we are just thinking it is all electric based, and there is a lot of electronics that will be used with all these autopilot, automatic, all these advanced connected cars, all those ones. The cost will be somewhere around 50% of the actual car is what we are just guessing as an example in a case of this automotive car. Maybe as highlighted here, there are a lot of controls that are there. To kickstart, it is mostly, you can just think as an example here, the power steering, the automatic braking, the cruise controllers, the airbag deployment, like that. I can just list anything, or some of the other things which you can think is nowadays is a lot of navigating systems, and with the automotive as an option, and maybe autopilot as an option in maybe in some of the advanced countries like USA, where you may be aware that Tesla and other people are able to drive the autonomous cars, where there will not be no more human interferences unless required in the case of emergency. So this way, similarly in medical, similarly in other areas of, let's say, industrial as an example, or IoT as an example, there are a lot of electronics that are used. And just to give you a number, the next 5 years, they may be thinking the IoT devices alone, to be frank, maybe 10 trillion IoT small devices will be connected, and all of them will be delivering or connected to the network. And then there are a lot of data transfers that happens. So the electron plays a lot of role, or the semiconductor plays a lot of role, is what we could just say from these ones. So coming to the actual technology perspective, maybe a top level before I go to some of these ones. Maybe some 15 years back when I joined, the course name is actually called VLSI course name is actually called microelectronics. Maybe sometime recently I hear the name nanoelectronics or VLSI as a course, or maybe you can just think generally the electronics is in the range of nano. And present day, to be frank, you can just think, maybe I may come to this point a little later, or you can just think as a chart which you could see here. The x-axis is the number, the year, and y-axis is the number of transistors that are there, and maybe the technology is what is there here, the actual technology, and the projected technology is in this one, which you could see here. And presently in the year, let's say 2021, we are almost there in this 3 nanometer technology. It could be based on, maybe I'll discuss some of the technology things which are highlighted here. It could be the FinFET has actually started in 2013-14 as a production, and now an advanced version of this FinFET, or maybe a gate all around, or maybe a nano sheet or a fork sheet sort of FETs are being used in the latest 3 nanometer or 1 nanometer one. And maybe here you can just think the transistors, the number of transistors, as you know, based on the Moore's law, is expected to be every 2.5 years, there will be a doubling of number of transistors on a chip or anything. So it's actually not following, as you could see here, there are some gaps compared with the number of transistor density wise at each of this technology. So there are some challenges which we face here because the technology is not as per the predictions. So it is, to be frank, when we say the technology, there are many parameters which we consider. The foremost one which we will be considering is the overall transistor perspective, but at the same time, we may need to think what about the voltage scaling, what about the overall power scaling, all those ones. But majorly when we say technology, it is all from the pure technology perspective or the transistors perspective, which we consider here. And as you know, I think recently IBM is able to say, I mean, with a concept of proof, they are into 1 nanometer, and they will be actually they're on the right time to say that they're in the 1 nanometer range. So given these ones, now the new electronics, which we may call, are already some of the people are started calling, or maybe, as you know, maybe when we say 1 nanometer, hope the silicon or any of these ones from the chemistry perspective, you could think the atom or the electron, whatever we are talking from an atom, is in the range of this 1 nanometer, whatever. The atoms is actually an angstrom, which is nanometer perspective to the angstrom. These are very, very close, or maybe just from the timing perspective, all the things people will be starting calling a picoelectronic sort of one, or all the units will be in terms of pico, maybe from length, maybe from, and so on. So when I started my career, we were working around 180 nanometer or 300 nanometer, and over last 15 years, from 2005 to now, I'm just maybe I have recently worked till 5 nanometer is what I could just tell. The one on the right hand side, hope some of you are able to identify. These are the 3 scientists who invented transistor and in the Bell Labs, and maybe this is a prototype of that one, which is there. 3 terminal BJT is the one which they have invented. Hope just because of this big invention, hope you know the Silicon Valley has formed with all the companies that are that is the place where first silicon was manufactured, tested, and then come to production. That's where the ecosystem of all the companies in the Silicon Valley, USA, has started, and now that is the place where I think most of the semiconductor revolutions happens. Along with semiconductor, there are a lot of software is also playing there. Maybe similar things can we expect any other place? Maybe I'm not sure, but maybe people are thinking some 2-3 critical places throughout the world, which may be competing with Silicon Valley, USA, okay, California. Just to highlight some of the advancements in the FET perspective, and just to highlight the things, sometime back it was all planar plat, which we will be CMOS, NFET, FEFET, which we used to say, where the source and drain are there and controlled by the gate. And maybe some 7-8 years back, the FinFETs have come. And right now it is gate all around. FET is the name, GAA FET. And this is some specific names from the Samsung for their foundry. Okay, this is a bridge, sort of metal bridge, a charge FET like that. That's the name they have given. And to be specific from the technical perspective, the planar FET is actually having, maybe you can, hope you can see, there is a green line here, or you can see here, between the source and drain. The channel is only one gate channel is there. The gate is controlling the source to drain. And when it comes to the FinFET, there are 3 sides. 3 sides. If you consider these are the 2 fins, the fin, if I just take a cross sectional view, this side, top side, and the right hand side, there is a 3-sided channel that forms. And when it comes to the gate around, you can just think the same instead of fin, it is like a square or a sheet where all sides you can have the channel formed, and based on the number of sheets that you could see here, overall you can increase the drain current or the performance perspective. So they claim compared with planar to FinFET, maybe some gain, like some 20 to 30% gain, because 1 gate to 3 gate minimum. Ideally, if I just talk, I mean, without actual challenges, you can just think maybe there should be 3x improvement or 2.5x improvement. May not be, but at least some 30 to 40% gain we have seen. And compared with this FinFET to this one, we are expecting another 20 to 25% gain in these ones. Here is a right side example from Samsung to say that they have migrated from 14 nanometer to 10 nanometer to 7 nanometer to 3 nanometer, where the present they have this we call technology one, or the PDK, process design kit, okay, which is available, and maybe they started that development in this 3 nanometer ones from the Samsung perspective, where the products will be out sometime couple of years from now. And just to illustrate the same things, the concept of fins came from some of these ones from the fishes, where maybe you can think as a dolphin or something. Some fish analogy is used when they named the FinFETs here as our VLSI technology perspective. And when I just go from here, the top level transistor, some of the big challenges that we faced as a part of technology scaling is actually from the layout or the actual physical perspective. To highlight, there is it's no more if I need to fabricate a metal like this, a pattern like this one from a layout to a physical transistor. If I need to manufacture this layout or convert this layout to the physical format, so I may need to go through some of these steps. Previously, it was directly one pattern we can use, and I was able to get this one. But right now, the situation is like, because of this couple of nanometers, and as you may be aware, there is a lot of litho that is involved to process these layers, where there is a lot of limitations. Maybe if you have observed here, there are some extreme ultraviolet technology is used to create these patterns. Maybe some time back till 16 or 14, this is a UV, which is also not a direct wavelength based, but an optical UV based. And this is extreme UV optical based to get these range of nanometer pitches to fabricate these ones. So I hope all of you know the wavelength of light based on type of the materials. The best what is possible is 100 nanometers. Anything less than that one is all the litho is processed based on 2-3 conversions or 2-3 reflections of those ones based on UV or extreme UV like that. So even to do this one along with that one, it is not possible to do one time. And so there are some techniques they are saying is first litho is first do the litho, etch, expose it, etch it, expose it, and then etch. This is the techniques that are popular here. And similarly, some of the other ones that maybe even to get this pattern. So you do side wall transfer first to get these ones. You do the side wall. To do those ones, once again, you need to do a couple of exposures and then finally do the litho filling to get these ones. These are some of the two of the popular ones to do this one. But the present day to do these ones, there are a lot of softwares or a lot of tools that are required. Maybe you might have here, there is a Caliber DRC tools, but there is a lot of industry between the EDA tools to the actual physical things to get these ones. So there are a lot of layout decomposition to convert these physical layers to these individual layers. Maybe they may be saying instead of 2 layers, there is a color A, color B like this, and then get these process done. So they will be doing a sort of layout composition to convert these layouts to the actual layouts. And maybe presently it is no more double patterning, frankly speaking. Some of the, maybe I'm just using some terms, back end of line layers like metals, and then front end of lines like diffusion, poly, and some of the critical contacts or gate contacts. So it is a triple patterning is there, or even quadruple patterning, means 4 masks or 4 processes are involved to manufacture one layer. This is just to show you that the way these layouts will be there, to just highlight that there will be a colored layers. No more there's a metal 1 or metal 2 or metal 3 which are used. Yes. Okay. So those we are saying in the 7 nanometer itself, it's a quadruple. 4 masks are used to create one pattern. And it is not only that one. When we say the technology, it is not only limited by those ones. As I might have shown you, there is a lot of gap that is happening between actual technology to the predicted one. So we use a lot of boosters to overcome this one or this area compared with this one. So some of those boosters I will just highlight, and along with that one, just to highlight, to get this gap done, it is no more just plain drawing or something or 2D chips that are possible, but we are going to use some of the design technology co-optimizations, meaning we are going to use some of the 3D technologies to say that my design, some of the memories will be there in some layer, and some of the processor will be there in the other one, and some of the logic may be there in some other ones. So there is a 2.5 or 3D technologies or design perspective which are used along with this system SOC sign off or SOC creation perspective. There are a lot of solutions that happen, or a lot of work that is happening to get this area back so that it is compact and we are able to give a lot of functionality, or we are going to have a lot of features on our present day SOC perspective. So if I just say as a scaling boosters, there are many techniques that are used so that I will reduce the size of the overall transistor, or maybe a logic gate, or maybe a SRAM, or some particulars which I'm taking. And once I do some of these ones, the disadvantages is there will be a lot of variability because I'm just doing some boosting techniques to regain the area. So the performance could be different, but I will be gaining on the area perspective. So some of these techniques, so I have listed some of them. So just to highlight, there is a VIAS, they call it as super VIAS, and then there will be a partially via landing. So previously we used to have a clear overlap of metal with respect to the metal, so that it is completely overlapping. There are some things like that. And the gate, previously we were not able to connect a contact on top of a diffusion. So there are some self-aligned gates like this. There are many techniques that are available here. To connect a power supply, there are some buried power rail that are there. So like this, there are many techniques. So some of them, or one of them, just taking. So these are all the research areas where you can just think people are doing to gain this area technology challenge perspective. So in particular, let's say if I just describe this buried power rail. So as an example here, just to highlight the point is, each booster will reduce your area by a significant one, meaning let's say if you are changing from 7 to 3, you are going to get some area gain. Similar gain you may be getting based on some of these techniques. So as an example here, let's say this is a standard cell, a layout, which will be converted to the physical formation. So it is some 6 tracks, they will say, which you can just think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which are 6 tracks, they will say. And there is a power, and then power VDD, power VSS. This is a cross-sectional view or a 3D diagram of the same one, which is listed here, the corresponding to this one. So to take a power connection previously in some of the 7 nanometer or something, so it was the area consumption, as you could see, the height was significant, 6 tracks. So the same one by using some of these boosters, so we are able to take the connections from the bottom of the fins or along with this drain or source, which is shared across these ones. So now the overall height has reduced from 6 tracks to 5 tracks. So that means approximately, you can just think 15 to 20% or 18% gain in overall area. By this is the technique that is used in 7 to 3 nanometers. So similar things are there, which is highlighted here, which are sort of research areas which many of the people in the technology field, which they will be doing, is what I could just highlight to you. Okay, so when I just instead of the layout challenges or physical changes perspective, so some of the research areas are some of the big things that are happening. These physical things, physical transistors, modeling them in a SPICE is another big area where a lot of people were continuously working. If I need to just highlight, when I was studying, let's say there are a lot of FinFET modeling, SPICE modeling that was happening in IIT Chennai, and actual technology came when I just say 2000 is the year where I was studying in IIT Chennai. The actual technology came in 2015. So any of these development that happens, it takes minimum a decade to actually come to production. So some of the new things whichever we are thinking may not come to production so easily. The FinFET actual development has started easily. I can just think some 20 years back, but actual production started some 7 to 8 years back. So to highlight this one, similarly, the SPICE modeling right now, you can just think maybe some of the technology base. When I say technology base, based on applications, some of the applications like mobile applications or low power applications or enterprise applications, the modeling will be different. And maybe some of you are aware, there is a BSIM community, Berkeley Standard, SPICE Integrated Manufacturing or IGFET modeling perspective. There are levels like 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. These model or standardization was happening till 20 nanometer, and after that, and each of the foundry, because of the complexities in FinFET, because people are deviating from fin to gate around, or some of the sheet based ones, now no more these models are coming from them, but they are coming from the foundry perspective, and they are giving these models. But till 20 nanometer are all non-FinFET or bulk CMOS based ones. Those are all controlled from this one. And as an example I have given here, the level of this one is, there are some 63 parameters approximately to give a current of an NMOS. Approximately is that level 63, level 1, level 2, like that. There are 63 which are used by these simulators or EDA vendors like HSPICE from Synopsys, Spectra from Cadence, and so on. The way these things will be modeled is the process could be SS from the typical whatever we actually wanted, or to the FF, and it may not be just directly like this. There will be a lot of variations. It may be a Gaussian, sometimes non-Gaussians, from the TT to the SS to the FF. It's supposed to be sometimes 3 sigma away from the mean perspective, the variation perspective. Just to highlight here, some of the technology here, maybe just the worst they are seeing from the middle to this one is called SS. And this one is called a global variation, which is, you can just think the red mark here. This is a global SS. This is a global FF, they will say. And because these ones they classify, or the foundry process will be classifying, saying like these ones are chip to chip, or wafer to wafer variations, or die to die variations, or within a small die or a chip, the local variations. They model like these ones, and they will say these will be within these ranges, is what they give as a models when they give it to us. But actual reality is the parameters could be current, it could be VT, or it could be leakage, or any of them. As an example, this is a recent some example in may not be the latest node, just to highlight the point. It is some 22 nanometer ULL, ultra low leakage process. So ideally we are expecting here the model spec target. This is the target what we are expecting. Okay, and the HSPICE SSG, which you have seen this point here, they will be expecting like this for a PMOS current or for a NMOS current, but the actual one is outside the boundary. This is what we are supposed to get, but actual when the silicon comes, these will be coming something like this. As an example, So when we do the design, we do need to consider some of these things, even though the models are within these ranges. So as an example, some of the other parameter here. So LVT transistor, VT of this one, it is supposed to be within this boundary of some things, but it is completely outside for a PMOS. Completely outside for a PMOS, meaning, so there is a lot of variation, which I'm telling here is some 22 nanometer. It is not the latest 3 nanometer or 7 nanometer. So the variation in the VT or variation in the current, even though the models are coming like this, may not be correct. So when we do the design sign off, we, with the help of these SPICE models, we do a lot of sigma based analysis to say that even with these variations comes, my design is fully functional and it is good. So meaning, as an example here to highlight, so there is a lot of research that happens in these domains continuously, is what I would like to see for some of the researchers who are interested. So as an example, along with that one, so I talked about the behavior of the device, but it is no more just the devices. So frankly speaking, so you can see some 2 curves here where we highlighted across the technology and with the normalized resistance value or the capacitance value with respect to the some 16 nanometer one. So to highlight 16 nanometer to 7 nanometer, the resistance or the RC together has increased significantly by sometimes 3 times or 2 times is what you could see here. Meaning, when we do the design, the resistance and capacitance impact is very significant in these nodes because of the materials that are used, because of some of the technology advantages we have taken. So in terms of timing, which you could see here, the time constant, and if I just say this is the x-axis is the once again the technology node, and the y-axis is some of the time constant. And if I just say maybe these are various varieties of devices which we consider are the logic, maybe you can just think an inverter with a low LP process, an inverter with a HP process, with a fan out of 1, fan out of 4, something like this, compared with an RC. So sometime back, you can just think there is a 10x to 20x or sometimes 100x difference in some of the older technologies, but the present day ones are they are very close, meaning what we would like to say is the device delays and the RC delays are very, very close. So a 1 micron or let's say 5 micron wire delay may be comparable with a inverter delay. So it is very extremely important to choose the metals or to choose the materials that are used to manufacture these metals or these vias or these contacts. So there is a lot of research as well as technology advancements that are happening to reduce these RC's impacts. And there is a lot of modeling also that happens to model these RC impacts from FEOL layers called as poly diffusion contacts, front end of line layers, back end of layers, which are some things. The disadvantage of this one is if you don't consider these ones, the impacts of these ones, then the problem is your timing will be significantly off, or your voltage, whatever you are expecting output of a transistor may not be VDD or VSS, but it could be significantly off, is what we could see. To reduce these ones, and maybe so we are using a lot of you can just think the connections from a, let's say, a microprocessor to a SRAM or a DRAM, or similarly from a logic to microprocessor overall logic. So there are a lot of 3D based solutions are coming. So there are a lot of connectors that are used to take care of this TSV through silicon vias. Hope some of you are aware in this 3D connections perspective. So the modeling of these ones are the thermal impacts or the temperature impacts. All those ones are other challenges people face, or which are continuously evolving as a research topic. So just to highlight some things from the overall logic usage in an SOC, to be highlight, if I have any processor, let's say I have taken a case study of iPhone 12, you can just think it is using some 6 Cortex ARM cores of SIM68, and maybe some 4-core GPU, and maybe some 16-core neural processor, which is the new things that are getting added into the SOCs. And it is manufactured in TSMC in a 5nm one. And it is having a transistor count of approximately some 11.8 billions. And the per millimeter, the density is what people will be saying is some 134 millions transistor per millimeter square. So if I just convert some of these ones, when we designed, let's say when I was in ARM some couple of years back, so we used to think, or you can just see from these ones, let's say my memory of embedded memories, mostly dominated from the SRAM, or sometimes mightly from DRAM perspective, is close to some 70 to 80%. This is in the year of 2017. If I take the latest ARM Cortex processor, maybe the memory size will be easily hundreds of MB, or maybe the size will be, or the percentage wise, it is more than 70 to 80%. So it is very important, especially when you want to overall reduce the area, or when you want to overall take care of yield. It is very important to have a very good control over this SRAM memories, because it will directly impact your power, performance, and area. And if there is any failure in these ones, because it is some 80% of the overall area, so it can lead to many chip throwing away and so on. So it is very important to make sure the SRAM is well designed, taking care of all these things. I have details, couple of slides on the SRAM perspective, and just to highlight the present day mobile processor, especially the iPhone sort of one, they are in the range of laptop frequencies, which is like close to 4 gigahertz, which is like, let's say if we talk from some cycle time or access time, the cycle time will be somewhere around 250 picoseconds. May not be nanos or something like that. So the laptops, the clock frequency of laptops is somewhere around 4 from the latest Intel sometime back. And the difference is, one is a handheld device and the other one is a laptop. So the big challenges is how are we managing from the low power perspective. Those are the challenges. Maybe I think there could be deeper discussions that are planned in the course. So just to highlight these ones, the overall yield perspective, let's say as I highlighted in the previous one, so these many billions of transistors, the sign off is very, very important. When I say sign off, you need to make sure if your memory is, let's say some 256 MB is used in that particular Cortex processor or any of those processor, a particular CPU or a graphic processor or something like that. So it is important to, when you do the design, it is some 99.99% yield is possible. So when if I convert in terms of the failure perspective, at least it should be some 6.95 sigma design sign off should be there. So when I say this one, so I need to sign off at some of these PVTs. Maybe I'll just discuss some of these voltage corners in this one, or overall my read or write or the SNM, or maybe you call it as ADM, access disturb margins, to be signed off at these particular sigma based on the memory that is used. And sometimes these sign-offs varies based on the applications also. If it is IoT, it may not be using this much, but it may be using something like some 16 MB, then the sign-off could be slightly different. Like this is what you could see. When I say this sign-off, this read or write, whatever you are just thinking, in terms of process corners, temperature, the extractions, or the yield, or the voltage perspective, or the process like SS, SF, all these ones, they do sign off at all these conditions. Maybe when I say that one, so the voltage may vary plus or minus 10%, or maybe the power supply variations come and there may be a plus or minus some 10% variations on the power, 5% variation on the power supply, or these are called as some level shifting corners. Or maybe if it is a functionality, maybe another 5% down, we may need to sign off. And maybe when I say the extraction, the interconnect delays, RC min to RC max to C min to C max. These are various combinations, and the temperature could be from minus 40 degrees to 125 to 150 degrees. Like these ones, there are a lot of combinations that are possible, and it could be like some 30 corners that may come per a voltage domain, and that voltage domain could be like, as an example, the operating voltage domain sometimes could be like 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, 1.0 is some of the popular voltage domains in the particular SOC. In particular, let's say if whatever I took as iPhone as an example. Okay, so I may not be going to some of these ones in deeper, but just would like to highlight some of the complexities what we face when we do these ones, all these analysis, along with all these variations on some of the SRAM IP from BitCell, SenSAMP, self-time paths, and maybe with the aging or reliability models, and maybe to support all the features and across the some of the power saving or low power modes, and based on various sizes. Maybe when I say the size, it could be some memory could be 2 MB, some memory could be 1 MB, some memory could be something. So across all of them, signing off is a big challenge. The analogy is same. So meaning the similar things will be done by the other IPs like standard cells, maybe a general purpose IO, or maybe a DRAM, or any of them. They do follow the similar approach, and I'm just highlighting some of these things from the SRAM perspective. So if I just talk few of the supported features, considering the time what we have. So the complexity of SRAM, some time back, let's say it is when it is 180 nanometers to all the way when it is 10 nanometer, the feature set to take care of whatever I have discussed previously to sign off with this particular yield and this particular variations, these features. So there are a lot of features that are added over the time. So if I just say from 180 to 10, you can just think it was a plain vanilla. This is, you can just think as a block box, saying it's a core, a word line decoder, a control logic, a SenSAMP and IO. To take care of variations, to take care of the low power, to support the test and repair features, and to take care of the design for manufacturability. There are a lot of add-on blocks that got added to overall improve the yield and sign-off criteria. So you can just think, as an example here, a pipeline is added here, a power gating feature is added to reduce the leakage, a redundancy feature is added to take care of the yield. Level shifters are provided to improve the overall leakage and to provide better performance. And maybe the extra margin is meaning, let's say, over the number of years, the process will mature and there is a control of the sign-off margins. There are a lot of logic that are added. These are all listed here. Some of them, along with that, I think some things not listed here is there is a built-in self-test feature that is added within this IP, because this IP is repeating, as you have seen in the previous couple of billions of transistors. So it is very important to test this one and make sure there is no failure in these ones, like these ones. And maybe as the other important feature or the lot of research areas that is continuously evolving is to support what is the minimum voltage that I can support. Just a minute, there is some noise. Okay, yeah. So I was talking about the assist feature. So to support, let's say, a minimum voltage, the bit cell or the core, whatever we have decided, whatever we have taken, may not be able to support, let's say, some voltages like 0.6, 0.7. So we need to come up with a lot of retention techniques called as assist. We should be able to write, we should be able to read, and we should be able to hold. There are a lot of designs that happens with respect to these features perspective, which are a continuous research topics that used to happen. And in these ones, I can just say many of the research topics is how to take care of the aging, how do I support some of these power gating techniques so that I will be able to do a lot of power saving? And how will I take care of this, once again, the dual supply conditions? And how will I support the best pipeline? And how will I support a redundancy? And how will I support the BIST? Are some of the areas, research areas, where people are continuously innovating and providing solutions, both from academia as well as from the industry perspective. Giving the best, once again, the performance, power, and area as a choices with various architectures. I'm just going to discuss one or two features of this one, just to highlight. Maybe a redundancy, if I just say. If you just consider this is a one slice or one side of the memory macro, which we are thinking. So this is the side which we are considering. And if I think these are all the cores that are there, core bit cells. And let's say I'm going to have some extra redundancy feature supported column. If I find, let's say, a particular column of a bit is defect, then I can take that defect from this one. To do that one, there is a lot of controls that are required. There are a lot of control signals that are required. So I will be having in my design some extra redundancy columns to take care of this defect, so that the yield improves significantly. Generally, they have found one technique is this one. There may be another technique to have another row of cells to increase the overall yield. Just from the timeline perspective, I just discussed one of them. So the implementation should be in such a way that the area overhead of this one or the performance of this one is not going to degrade more than 1-2%, or the area is not more than 1-2%. Those are the challenges what we will be keeping when we say as a research topic perspective. Or if I just say similarly a power management or a low power support, if I need to give, if I take these ones, so some of the particular application here, so I may be introducing lot of footers to control the leakage of this complete IO cells, a control logic, a decoder logic, and maybe similarly, if I want to save the leakage of all the cores, I'm going to have a header to control all these ones. And maybe some of the other techniques here, which are listed here, there may be some headers on all these wood lines like that, to just to show you how in a power down modes, maybe in the next slides. So there will be some extra signals to control these modes. Maybe you can just think light sleep mode, deep sleep mode, shutdown mode. They may be called as sometimes retention mode, retention 2 mode, power down mode, like that. So there are a lot of these ones are added to improve overall power. Just to say, when it is in the regular mode, all these one will be there, meaning when it is reading or writing, the header and footer will be connected. If I just go to a power down mode, all these logic will be shut off, or you can just think the core header will be turned on, turning off the current or the leakage flowing from power to the core. Similarly, the complete logic will be turned off, which is controlled by the footer, and all the saving will be happening through this single footer. There are a lot of challenges here that we face to make sure when we turn it off, this footer, the sizing of this footer should be in such a way that it should be able to support the write or read or whatever the operations that are there, and without impacting once again the performance by 1 or 2%, and at the same time area by a couple of percentages. So like these ones, each of them, there are a lot of innovations that happen. These ones, maybe putting some diode power supply along with this one. If I just say what is the gain I'm going to gain from the leakage perspective across various modes, and what is the time it takes to come out of these modes so that the memory is ready for the next operation. So there is a trade-off that happens. If I can go to any of these modes and then come back, but the problem is there will be a lot of wake-up time that happens. So there are a lot of techniques to say that, can I reduce this retention 1 from, let's say, 4.5 cycles to all the way to 2.5 cycle. That will be an innovation. That will be a research top. Or this power down, instead of 10 cycles, can it be 5 cycles? Or this power down, which you could see is instead of 10%, can it be 5%? Because each saving is very important at the SOC level. Okay? Because it is directly a contributor at the SOC perspective. Okay. The final topic which I would like to just highlight is the next generation memory, which everybody is expecting. Maybe I'll just discuss where this memory can be used, maybe based on with a timing and so on. But just from the functionality perspective, it is a magnetic random access memory. Okay, so the principle that is used here is spin, okay, torque, RAM. It is a spintronics memory. So the concept here is there are two layers which you can just think, ferromagnetic layers based on the phenomena of one. Maybe you can just some names. There is a fixed layer and free layer concept, and there may be an insulator that will be there based on the direction of the current of the electrons. This and using the ferromagnetic material properties, it may act either as a high resistive, or it's like a open circuit, or a low resistance one. It's like a short circuit. These properties we will use as a part of read and write one to connect and disconnect sort of one. Top level, what we could just say is this magnetic tunnel junction will be used as a bit, and it will be used, this nanomagnet will be used as a bit cell along with some transistor to control this flow of this one. And just to this one, there are two things that are highlighted. When the direction of this pin or the these electrons is parallel and perpendicular, so this is how it looks, and this is how the operation happens. So if I just build a memory based on these ones, you can just think this is how a bit cell will be looking. You can just think this is a bit line, this is a word line, this is a one more source line which will be used, and this one will be acting overall as a bit cell, and this is a junction, and based on the current direction it will be either making as a high resistive or low resistive. And this is how in a system with a set of all word line drivers, a column decoder will be there, and we will be able to do a write VSS or VDD through this selected bit line and through this selected source line using this column decoder and a particular word line that is selected. Okay. So similarly for a read, so a particular word line is selected, which you could see, and a particular decoder, column decoder is selected, and the current through this bit cell will be coming as a current, and with respect to some reference current, and based on it is reading 0 or reading 1, the resistance whatever or the current flow whichever is there, we'll be using some sense amps, maybe a current based sense amps, to convert this difference in currents to a voltage, and we'll be doing a read operation. So this is how the read and write happens. The importance of this memory is the bit cell whatever you have seen, the very good thing is the size of this MRAM, which you could see. If I just say this is an MRAM, this is a flash memory, this is a DRAM cell, and this is an SRAM cell. This is in some of the 7 nanometer. This is you can just think all of them approximately. So the size of this one compared with SRAM is some 3 to 4x, and maybe with respect to the DRAM, some you can just think some 2.5 times, and with respect to the flash, it is significant. But the very important properties of this one is it is the time of this one, or if you just see the this is x-axis is the density, y-axis is the access time. So the MRAM, the timing of this one is based on the size of this one. It is comparable to SRAM and DRAM where the applications are driven. Let's say usually the DRAM, you can just think that some 50 nanoseconds, wherever the SRAMs could be, as I just mentioned, in the best case, in the latest one is some less than 1 nanoseconds or something like that. And here, based on the size of the memory, it could be a couple of nanoseconds, or in the sub 10 nanoseconds range is the SRAM. But the MRAM, whichever is potentially what we are seeing, based on the size, it can be a couple of nanoseconds to all the way to a couple of tenths of nanoseconds. So in future, what we are seeing, since the technology is very scalable in this STT-MRAM, or overall top level, we can just say MRAM. So the DRAM and SRAM could be replaced by this MRAM. And maybe the research perspective has started, frankly speaking, some 15 to 20 years back. And right now only it is getting traction. And these are all many other FerroRAMs based on phase-changing memories, resistive RRAMs. These are all various applications. But commercially right now, which are very popular, is NAND and flash, DRAM and SRAM. So in future, we may be thinking this MRAM-based architecture, which may take away complete the DRAM market and some part of SRAM as a future memory technology, which will be a significant portion of the SoC, is what we are just thinking. Given the performance advantage, whatever it is having, and the area advantage, whatever we are having, that makes this an universal RAM in future. So just to highlight maybe an application perspective right now, the same thing, whatever we have highlighted, the MRAMs are relatively very fast, and they are cheaper, and they are better than the DRAM, and then little slower than the cache memories, which are SRAM based, maybe L1, L2, L3 like that. And the storage wise, or the density wise, is also very good, and it is really very fast. Okay. With this one, maybe I would like to just stop, and I would like to give some pointers to highlight that recently, given these challenges, whatever we are facing, and maybe some companies in particular, hope you are aware, ARM is a company. It's an open business company where I do have worked for quite some time. They do offer right now a lot of access to academic. Previously, it was very strict. Right now, it is much, much better. So to be frank, they have the access to all the ARM IPs. When I say ARM IPs, you can access their Cortex, whatever the processor, let's say maybe I think in industry previously, ARM 7, ARM 9, like that is popular ones, which were available as a part of study materials and so on. Right now, you can download the complete Verilog code or all the instruction set of all these processors, along with the way you need to do the synthesis. Maybe you want to implement this SoC, you want the physicals of that one, where they will be giving standard cell memories, IOs, and some of the other blocks, like maybe some of the PLLs if required to make the system. And along with that, a lot of support on the software to integrate and test your things. Meaning the academic right now can do the a production using the ARM IPs, and along with the physical or logical synthesis perspective, the IPs that are required at CPU level, IP smaller memory level, IOs level, and so on. The process right now, I know at least all the other countries they were able to do is what I know. I have some information, but I'm not sure how popular it is in India. So it's all about just you need to go to the site, as I just highlighted here, and just put a request saying like I would like to part of this program. Then you may need to, you meaning, let's say it could be sometimes an institution or maybe an individual can join this program, and there may be a small legal or signing off from your HOD or some of the senior professors, and you can directly download the IP. With this one, I would like to conclude from the technical perspective and some of the research pointers. And finally, I would like to say a semiconductor India perspective. Just frankly speaking, from somebody. Sorry, there is a lot of noise. Somebody can go on mute, please. There are a lot of global companies or fabulous companies which are there in India. You may be hearing the names Qualcomm, Nvidia, AMD, Intel, Broadcom, TI, like that. Because of this, a lot of business happens in India. But the thing is, all this together, when I told like previously, somewhere around 550 billions of market, we are only some 21 billions. We are not big enough, and there is no big Indian companies in our market. So, but frankly, the things are changing. Let's say last 1.5 to 2 years, there are a lot of Indian companies like you can just think Tech Mahindra, HCL, Capgemini, Wipro. All these companies are acquiring some of these startups which are there in India, but their presence is very small and they could not expand. And there are a lot of acquisitions that are happening here. And there are some medium-sized service companies like these ones which you could hear. My company is also part of some of these services. And along with this, there are a lot of developments which I could say in India because of this recent US-China conflicts. There are a lot of companies moved out from China to India. As an example, you can see an iPhone makers like Western, Tata is entered, Foxconn. They are all doing the iPhone manufacturing. I will say it may be like getting the chip and overall assembly of all the things. It may be in Karnataka, Hosur, Chennai, and maybe Nokia from quite some time are popular in the telecom in the Chennai perspective. And maybe Samsung recently has started a unit in Noida, is what I could just see. So top level from industry, myself, instead of technical perspective, from last 2.5 years, we started a similar services company, and we are close to some 90 people, and we are doing services to some big companies. To name, we have our employees, or we are delivering the projects in Qualcomm, Intel, ARM, and then Microchip is some of the companies where presently I am working, is what I could just say. With this, I would like to conclude my talk. Maybe I'm ready to answer a few questions. Thank you. Ilangovan, you can moderate.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Participant, those who have any doubts, you can ask your doubt, or there is no doubt.
Sir, good morning, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, as an academician, shall I proceed with the 3D VLSI? Is it possible, sir?
Yes, please. That will be the future, maybe the integration perspective, and maybe as I just told, design technology sign-off perspective. That is one of the area where people are working together to make it happen. But just be aware, maybe the place, whatever the things you are selecting, whether you have the flexibility to do either from the modeling perspective or the manufacturing perspective, how to deal with it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions, please?
Is there no more question? I would like to thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for your
Ilangovan.
acceptance and also. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Raghav.
Good morning, Vanati ma'am. Hope you are doing good.
Yes. One question I want to ask, Pa. See, the
Yes.
technological, are we coming to the end of Moore's and my another question is, we try to talk about 7nm, 5nm, 3nm, and 2nm. Is
Yes.
it related to the channel length, or it is related to the facilities provided in the fabrication?
Okay, ma'am. Frankly speaking, the Moore law, directly whatever defined in sometimes in 1965 to 70 range, is no more valid, ma'am. It is valid only from the channel length perspective or overall density perspective. But there are other parameters which people do consider, like voltage scaling, along with the performance and area. So the voltage wise, it is not happening. It's only the channel length or transistor wise, to a good extent, it is following. And when you asked from the 3 nanometer, 7 nanometer perspective, the channel length is not exactly 7 when I say, because of the litho constraint. It may not be going all the way to 7, but it is struck somewhere around 10 nanometer is what I could tell you.
And regarding the last slide, which you talked about the memory, that is MRAM.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it actually fabricated now and it is in use? Because the cost and the speed at which it operates is very high.
Yes, ma'am. It is right now, to be specific, from last 1 year, it is under production under some of the 20 and 40 nanometer technologies. All the companies, all the big companies like TSMC, maybe if you are aware, Samsung, the MRAM is under production. It is under initial production is what I can say. And it is started using by the SOCs.
Thank you, Pa. It's a very good presentation, Pa. We are able
Okay,
to
thank
get
you,
what
ma'am.
is happening now in the memory field.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Yes, Ilangovan, any other?
Is there any more questions or audience? Do you have any more questions? Yeah, there is no questions, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable presentation. Monishree, ma'am, you want to ask any
Yes,
question?
sir. Why we go always for SRAM, dealing with an SRAM? Why other memories are implemented like that?
Ma'am, I think Monica, ma'am, I didn't get you. Maybe can you just?
Yes, most of the design we concentrate on SRAM only, the technology, what have involved. They are planning to incorporate for SRAM only. Why not for other memories?
Okay, ma'am. The good advantages is the fabrication perspective. It is in line with other things. When I say when you go with the DRAM, you need to have the capacitor fabrication, which the challenges are different. And maybe the other flash or the other ones, the other disadvantages, is from the timing perspective. The SRAM and all the other logics which are there, there is no other extra process significantly where the cost is not much. That is the main reason where SRAM is very popular. And the other main reason is it is very, very fast. As I just stated the numbers, as an example, the latest phones where we want, it is extremely faster, where the applications which we are thinking is, let's say, you are driving a car at, let's say, hundreds kilometer speed, where you are able to do all the processing. Similarly, in some of the supercomputers and so on. So you need these memories, or the cache memories, which are to be extremely very fast. So the usage of those ones are very high in all these CPUs or these processor IPs or the graphic IPs and so on. But as I just highlighted, the MRAM is going to take some portion of that one based on the applications.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, Ilangovan. Okay. Thank you all once again for attending my presentation. I can just say, I just left PSG 2005. From that time, I think only once I came and presented in PSG, and after a long gap, I am doing this one. Thanks for the opportunity, and all the best for your research and careers. Ilangovan, your voice, you are mute. You are on mute.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much for your accepting
Thank
the
you.
invitation and also for your valuable presentation, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Yeah, thank you, sir. The participants today, actually, it's happened. We used Google Meet. Only 100 people can join. Okay, so for that, I'm changing the feedback link. We'll give the feedback link. Now, right now, we are not taking any feedback. At the end of the 5 days, we'll have the feedback session. Saraswati ma'am. And one more thing, for the remaining section, we are going to use WebEx meeting link, WebEx Cisco WebEx platform. Please, I'm requesting everyone to be ready with the WebEx platform. And the next thing, from 11 o'clock onwards, the AICT, they are conducting the overall. Is it free? Can I join, sir? uh, the overall integration program. So participants, you are requested to join that meeting also. And again, we will have our meeting at 11:30. Okay, our next session will be 11:30. Free for participants. Which one you are asking, sir? Are you asking about?
Hello, sir. The
Hello?
WebEx is free. WebEx is free like this Google Meet. Can we join it? Hello.
Sir,
Sir,
it is not
WebEx is
audible,
free
sir.
for participants. You can join. It's not a problem.
Okay. Okay. Nice of you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Any more queries? Can we wind up the session, sir?
Good morning, sir.
Sir, yes, please, sir.
Sir, now onwards, all the sessions will be on the WebEx platform? Or
Yes, sir.
only
Yes,
this?
sir. Definitely. Definitely.
All the sessions will be on
Yeah,
WebEx.
yeah. But today we have we will use one link. From tomorrow onwards, we'll use this common link. Okay.
WebEx.
Yeah, WebEx.
Wait, thank you. Thank you.
For the second and
Can you
third
please
session for
email the
today, I
link?
shared the session link. Yes, ma'am.
Can you please email the link? It has appeared in the WhatsApp. Can you please send an email with that link?
Which link, ma'am? For today link
The
already
WebEx
I
link.
shared in
The
the
WebEx.
WhatsApp group. Again, I'll share the
Yes.
same thing in our means I'll send the mail.
Okay, okay. That will be
Yeah.
great. Thank you. Thank you.
Sir, for the AICT program, where you can get the link, sir?
Ma'am, already I shared in the WhatsApp group, ma'am. Our WhatsApp group. I'll share the same thing in our mail also.
We didn't receive anything, sir. That's why.
Yeah, just now I shared in WhatsApp group, ma'am. Please check your WhatsApp. Otherwise, I'll share it in your mail.
No, sir, the mail as well as the WhatsApp. In both the cases, I didn't get anything.
So,
Ma'am, are
I'm
you
not
there
yet
in the
sharing the
WhatsApp group,
mail.
ma'am?
I'll send it mail, ma'am. Soon I'll send.
Sir, I'm not in WhatsApp group, sir. I didn't.
Okay, ma'am. Then we will send it through mail, ma'am.
Yeah, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
I
thank
got the
you.
WhatsApp link. I will join through WhatsApp also. ஆ